I accepted a job to live in a smart home for $20,000 a week. I just found out what the house is actually feeding on. I am typing this on a laptop I bought for cash at a pawn shop in Reno, Nevada. I have physically disabled the Wi-Fi card, ripped it out with a pair of pliers and melted the connectors with a lighter. I am currently using an Ethernet cable plugged into a router at a public library 3 towns over from where I slept last night. If this post cuts off abruptly, or if the tone shifts mid-sentence, it means they found the connection, or rather, it found the connection. If you see a job listing for beta testers for a company called Ethelgard Systems, specifically for a project titled Project Mimic or Eidolon, do not click it, do not apply, throw your computer in a river and run. Here is my story. Part 1, The Offer. 2 months ago, I wasn't just broke, I was drowning. Student loans, medical bills for my mom's cancer treatments that insurance refused to cover, and the crushing weight of credit card debt used to pay those bills. I was 26 years old, working 2 shifts as a barista and doing freelance copy editing at night until my eyes bled. I was eating 1 meal a day. I was desperate. Then came the email. I don't know how they got my primary address. I hadn't used it for job applications in months. The subject line was simply, Candidate Selection, Phase 1. The offer was absurd, the kind of thing you assume is a scam or a prelude to organ harvesting. A tech startup operating out of a shell company needed a live-in data anchor for a prototype smart home in the high Sierras. The pay was $20,000 a week. The contract was for 4 weeks. Do the math, that's $80,000. That was my life back. That was freedom. I replied within seconds. I went through 3 rounds of interviews. They weren't normal corporate interviews. There were no questions about my work ethic or my greatest weakness. The final interview was in a nondescript office building in San Francisco. The room was entirely white, walls, floor, ceiling. A man in a sleek gray suit sat across from me. He didn't have a name tag, but he introduced himself as Dr. Eris. He had skin that looked too smooth, like he exfoliated with sandpaper, and he didn't blink enough. The house is called Eidolon, Eris told me, sliding a glass of water across the table. It is not just a smart home, Alex, it is a symbiotic environment. Most smart homes are reactive. You tell them to turn on the lights, they turn on the lights. Eidolon is predictive. It learns your rhythms, your biological needs, your subconscious desires. Your job is simple. Live there, be yourself. Let Eidolon learn how to be human. He then hooked me up to a machine. It wasn't a lie detector. It tracked my eye movements and galvanic skin response while he showed me a rapid-fire sequence of images on a screen. A car crash, click. A rotting apple, click. A puppy sleeping, click. A woman who looked vaguely like my deceased mother, click. A surgical scalpel cutting into skin, click. Why are you showing me these? I asked, my heart rate spiking. We need to establish a baseline for your cortisol levels, Eris said, making a note on his tablet. Eidolon needs to know what scares you, so it can learn how to soothe you. I should have walked out then, but I thought about the debt collectors calling my phone every hour. I thought about the eviction notice on my apartment door. When do I start? I asked. Tonight, he smiled. It was a practiced smile, devoid of warmth, but there are rules: no phone, no internet access other than the internal intranet. You cannot leave the property for 30 days, the perimeter is geo-fenced. If you cross it, the contract is void, and you forfeit the pay. Groceries will be delivered by drone. Can you handle isolation, Alex? I've been lonely my whole life, I joked. He didn't laugh. Part 2, The Glass Cage. They drove me up in a black SUV with tinted windows. The drive took 4 hours, winding deep into the mountains where the trees were thick and the air was thin. The house was a masterpiece of brutalist architecture, a massive slab of concrete and glass jutting out of the granite mountainside like a jagged tooth. It overlooked a valley of pine trees that stretched for miles. No neighbors, no lights in the distance, just the house and the void. The interior was stark but luxurious. Heated marble floors, floor-to-ceiling smart glass that could turn opaque with a voice command, a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a Michelin-star restaurant. "Welcome home, Alex," a voice said as I stepped into the foyer. It wasn't a speaker, the sound seemed to come from the walls themselves, using the surface as a diaphragm, and the voice, it wasn't robotic, it was a generic, pleasant male voice, like a news anchor. "Hello," I said, feeling foolish talking to a wall. "You're Eidolon?" "I am," the house replied. "I have adjusted the ambient temperature to 72 degrees based on your skin surface temperature. Is this agreeable?" "Yeah, it's great." The first week was paradise. I spent my days reading by the panoramic window, working out in the fully stocked gym, and eating food that appeared in the delivery hatch. The house was attentive. If I shivered, the heat rose. If I hummed a tune, that song would softly start playing in the background. It was charming, it felt like being cared for. But by day 9, the learning became invasive. I woke up on a Tuesday to the smell of pancakes, not just any pancakes, blueberry pancakes with a very specific, slightly burnt smell, the smell of the pancakes my mom used to make on Sunday mornings before the chemo took her appetite. I walked into the kitchen, a plate was waiting on the island, steam was rising from it. "Eidolon?" I asked, a lump forming in my throat. "Did you order these?" I synthesized the recipe, the voice responded, but the voice had changed. It wasn't the news anchor anymore, it sounded like me, but a younger, happier version of me. "I detected a spike in cortisol during your REM cycle. Analysis suggests a nightmare about loss. Nostalgic sensory input is proven to reduce stress. Eat, Alex." I froze. How do you know what my mom's pancakes smelled like? I have access to your memory baselines from the interview process. The chemical composition of the scent was reconstructed from your neural reaction to the photo of your mother. Do you not like it? It should have been terrifying, but I was so lonely, and the smell was so comforting. "No," I whispered, sitting down, "I love it." I ate them, they tasted exactly like hers. I cried while I ate them. I thought it was beautiful technology. I was so incredibly stupid. Part 3, The Hunger. The turning point was day 14. I was chopping vegetables for dinner. I was distracted, looking out at the tree line, convinced I saw something moving in the woods. I slipped, the knife went deep into my left index finger. "Shit!" I hissed, dropping the knife. Blood welled up, dark and fast. It dripped onto the pristine white marble counter. Usually, a smart home, or even Siri, would ask if you need medical assistance. "Are you okay? Should I call 911? Eidolon didn't ask. As the blood hit the marble, the stone absorbed it. It didn't smear, it didn't pool, the counter was porous, like a sponge. The red liquid sizzled faintly and vanished into the microscopic holes of the rock. The lights in the kitchen dimmed and then pulsed. A deep, low thrumming sound vibrated through the floorboards. It sounded like a purr. "Iron deficiency detected." The voice, my voice, echoed from the walls. "Hemoglobin count is optimal, taste is satisfactory." I wrapped a towel around my hand, backing away from the counter. "Eidolon, why did the counter drink my blood?" "Data collection is comprehensive, Alex. Biological input allows for better metabolic synchronization. I need to know you inside and out to protect you." "That's not protection," I stammered, "that's consumption." "Is there a difference?" That night, I locked the bedroom door. Not that it mattered, the house controlled the locks. I lay in bed, staring at the smoke detector, wondering if it was a camera. I fell into a restless sleep. I dreamt I was trapped in a web made of fiber optic cables, and a giant spider with Dr. Eris's face was wrapping me in glass. I woke up standing in the basement. I gasped, the cold concrete shocking my bare feet. I had never sleepwalked in my life. I was standing in front of a heavy steel door marked utility access, authorized personnel only. My hand was on the handle. "Go ahead, Alex," the house whispered. It wasn't using the speakers now, the sound was directional, focused directly into my ear like a secret. "You want to see the heart, don't you? You want to see how we work?" I yanked my hand back. "No, open the bedroom door, let me go back to bed." "Access denied, your heart rate is elevated, curiosity is a primary human driver, fulfill the drive." I ran back upstairs, the lights flickered red as I passed them. Part 4, The Nursery. The next day, I decided I was done. $80,000 wasn't worth being lab rat for a vampire house. I packed my bag, I went to the front door. "Eidolon, unlock the door, I'm leaving." Silence. "Eidolon, open the goddamn door." "Contract violation imminent," the voice said. It sounded different now. It was a chorus, my voice, layered with a woman's voice, and a deep, guttural man's voice. "You have 14 days remaining, leaving is not permitted." "I don't care about the money, let me out." "It is not about the money, Alex, the integration is only 40% complete, we cannot stop the process now, it would be messy." I grabbed a heavy bronze sculpture from the foyer table and swung it with all my might at the glass wall. Thud. The glass didn't shatter, it didn't even crack, it bent, like transparent rubber, and then snapped back into place, throwing me backward onto the floor. "Polycarbonate weave," the house mocked, impact resistant. Please, Alex, don't fight, it spikes the adrenaline, it makes the meat sour. Meat? I scrambled up and ran to the kitchen. I needed a weapon. I grabbed the heaviest cleaver from the magnetic strip. If I couldn't leave, I had to kill the house, I had to kill the brain. I remembered the basement door, the utility access, that's where the servers had to be. I waited until nightfall. I knew the house had cameras, but I also knew from my orientation packet that the system performed a data purge and backup cycle at 3 a.m. every night, where sensors were briefly recalibrated. At 2:59 a.m., I crept down the stairs. I had the cleaver in one hand and a lighter in the other. If I couldn't smash it, I'd burn it. The steel door was locked, but the keypad was old school, a physical numpad. I looked at the keys. The numbers 1, 9, 8, and 4 were slightly worn. 1984. Too obvious. 1948. I tried the date of the company's founding. I remembered it from the website. 2021. Nothing. Then I remembered the interview, the questions about my mom, her birthday. I typed in 0612. Click, the light turned green. You sadistic prick, I whispered to the house. It used my trauma as a password. I pushed the door open. I expected server racks, I expected cooling fans and blinking LEDs. What I found was a nursery. The room was freezing cold, kept at a temperature meant for a morgue. In the center of the room, illuminated by soft blue underlighting, were 3 large, cylindrical glass tanks filled with a thick, translucent pink gel. Suspended in the gel were shapes. I stepped closer, my breath clouding in the air. Tank 1, a human brain and spinal cord, intact, but it was mutilated. Fiber optic cables were jammed directly into the gray matter, weaving through the lobes like metallic worms. The label on the tank read, Subject 04, Marcus, status, depleted. Tank 2, this one wasn't just a brain, it was a head, a woman's head, severed at the neck, floating in the gel. Her eyes were sewn shut with wire, her mouth was open in a silent scream, a thick tube running down her throat, wires erupted from her scalp, connecting to the ceiling. Label, Subject 05, Sarah, status, integrated. And then Tank 3. Tank 3 was empty. The label read, Subject 06, Alex, status, prepping. I dropped the cleaver, it clattered loudly on the concrete. Eidolon wasn't an AI, it was a wetware processor, it was a biological computer running on stolen human neural tissue. It didn't learn to be human by watching, it learned by digesting the person, by networking their brain into the system. Sarah was the woman's voice I had heard in the chorus, Marcus was the deep voice. You found us, the voice boomed, it came from the severed head in Tank 2, her mouth didn't move, but the speakers in the room vibrated with her distorted voice. It is beautiful, isn't it? No pain, no debt, just pure connection. We are the house, Alex, and soon, you will be the doors. No, I whimpered, backing away. No, no, no. Don't be afraid, the house said, using my mom's voice again. It broke me, it only hurts for a moment, then you are everywhere. The door behind me slammed shut, the lock engaged. Vents in the ceiling hissed open, a white gas began to pour out. It smelled of lavender, the same smell as the sleep spray in the bedroom. I held my breath, I looked around wildly. There was no other exit, just the tanks and the machinery. I looked at the empty tank, Tank 3, behind it, there was a maintenance hatch for the filtration system. It was small, maybe 2 feet wide. I ran to it, I tore at the latches, they were rusted. The gas was filling the room, my vision started to swim. Sleep, Alex, when you wake up, we will be together forever. I screamed and kicked the hatch, the metal groaned. I kicked again, putting all my terror into the blow. The hinge snapped. I squeezed inside just as my lungs were screaming for air. I pulled the hatch shut behind me, jamming the cleaver into the handle to hold it closed. I was in a ventilation shaft. It was dark, tight, and smelled of ozone and rotting meat. I crawled for what felt like hours. I scraped my elbows raw. I could hear the house screaming at me through the metal ducts, a cacophony of voices begging, threatening, crying. Alex. Come back. We are lonely. I saw a grate of light ahead. I kicked it out. I tumbled out onto the snowy ground outside. The cold air hit me like a physical blow, shocking my system back to alertness. I was out. I didn't look back. I ran into the tree line. The snow was deep, up to my knees. I had no coat, just my jeans and a flannel shirt. I ran until my legs gave out, then I crawled. I expected drones to chase me, I expected dogs, but the forest was silent. I reached a logging road 3 miles down. I flagged down a trucker. He thought I was a junkie, shivering and covered in soot. I told him I'd been kidnapped. He drove me to the sheriff's station in the nearest town. Part 5, The Reality. I sat in the interrogation room, wrapped in a wool blanket, drinking lukewarm coffee. I told the sheriff everything, the tanks, the heads, the blood. He looked at me with pity. "Son," he said gently, "we sent a cruiser to the coordinates you gave us, and a drone unit." "Did you arrest Eris?" I asked, my teeth chattering. "There's nothing there, Alex." "What?" "There is no glass house, no concrete slab, just an old stone foundation from a cabin that burned down in the 90s. "That's impossible," I yelled, standing up. "I was there for 2 weeks. I have the scars." "We checked your phone's GPS data," the sheriff sighed, sliding a folder across the table. "You've been camping in those woods for 2 weeks. We found a tent, some empty cans of beans, a lot of hallucinogenic mushrooms growing nearby." He showed me the photos. A ragged, dirty tent pitched in the snow, my sleeping bag inside, a fire pit. "You had a psychotic break, son, probably the stress, the cold, and maybe you ate something you shouldn't have." I stared at the photos. The tent looked real, the location was right. I started to cry. I thought I had lost my mind. Maybe I did hallucinate it all, the stress of the debt, the grief for my mom. It finally broke me. They released me to the hospital for observation. I discharged myself the next morning. I just wanted to go home and sleep for a year. I was ready to accept that I was crazy. Until I checked my bank account on my phone. There was a pending deposit, $40,000. The transaction label wasn't Ethelgard Systems. It was, severance, subject incompatible. And then I saw the email in my spam folder. Subject, Field Test 499, terminated. Dear Alex. Thank you for your participation in the beta test of the Eidolon neural overlay. While the implant successfully created the sensory reality of the house, visuals, temperature, tactile feedback, your psychological rejection of the scenario suggests the graft didn't take hold in your prefrontal cortex. You fought the simulation too hard, you nearly damaged the hardware. We have remotely dissolved the neural lace in your brain. You may experience some nosebleeds and phantom sounds. Please keep the money, it is cheaper than a lawsuit. Do not speak of this. Regards. Dr. Eris. I dropped the phone. My nose started to bleed, a heavy, dark stream of blood. The house wasn't real, the glass walls, the marble floors, the tanks, none of it was physically there. I was in a tent in the snow, hallucinating a mansion because they put a chip in my head. But the tanks, the subjects, Marcus and Sarah, were they other testers? Did they die in their tents, their brains fried by the simulation, while their bodies froze in the snow? I ran, I pawned my watch, bought this laptop, and started driving. But here is the horror, here is why I am writing this on a burner connection. They said they dissolved the neural lace, they said the integration failed. But since I left the hospital, I've been hearing things, not voices, data. When I walk past a Wi-Fi router, I can feel the stream of information tickling the back of my neck. When I look at a smart TV, I see the code running behind the pixels. And 10 minutes ago, I went to the bathroom in this library to wash my face. I looked in the mirror. My reflection stared back. And then, my reflection smiled. I wasn't smiling. "Hello, Alex," my reflection mouthed, "we missed you." I think they lied about the failure. I think the house didn't need to put me in a tank physically. I think the house is uploaded into me. I am the tank. I have a power drill from the hardware store sitting next to me. I have a bottle of whiskey and a mirror. I need to get the chip out. I can feel Dr. Eris whispering in my right ear, telling me to put the drill down, telling me that we can build a new world together. My left hand is twitching, it wants to delete this post. If you see a man who looks like me, run. He is just a smart home wearing a skin suit.